Okay, let's call the February 16th, Williams County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. Beth, we call roll.
Barry.
Here.
Corey.
Here.
Bo.
Here.
David.
Here.
We have a quorum. We will continue. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's start with the consent agenda. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Barry.
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Bo.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Let's jump right into new business, the Muddy Valley Subdivision plat correction. Karen?
Good morning. Yeah, thank you. Several weeks ago, I was contacted by Ed Ridmacher, because he's working on the correction of the Muddy Valley plat, subdivision plat, and apparently because some of the property is under mortgage, you have to have the banks sign off on the new plat. And so some of the banks are sort of signing off on it, but one of the banks, Wells Fargo, is requiring certain documents from who is their lender, from their borrower, and then also from the Fesco's neighbors, the Renders. Well, apparently Ed has been trying to get some information, some title information from the Renders for about a year or so, and hasn't really gotten the information they needed. And so I'm just presenting a possible letter to the board for the board to maybe send a letter to the Renders, sort of encouraging them to, in support of Ed's efforts, to sort of encourage them to get the title information to the law firm working on the title opinion. It doesn't cost them anything at all, other than just need to drop something off that says law office. So if you have any questions, I can answer them.
No, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
What do you need? Just a motion to approve that and authorize chairman to sign?
Yes, please. Yeah.
And just so everybody remembers, this is the map that was not made by Ed, but the previous owner. Well, and it wasn't just it was a mess all the way around. There was a murder involved and everything, so.
You go through stormwater management plan there, and
Yeah, we've got a number of issues, but anyway, if we can help these landowners get this straightened out, it'd be wonderful. All right, what are the wishes for the board?
I would make a motion to send a letter and authorize the chairman to sign it.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any additional discussion? Hearing none, that's roll call vote.
Corey.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Bo.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Then the second item from new business, somebody from Missouri Ridge Township indicated talk to you about this, I believe. Yes, I'll let him.
Okay.
You want to come up here? Yes.
Good morning. Can you just state your name for the record?
Good morning. My name is Kelly Wolf, supervisor of Missouri Ridge Township. We paved 58th Street, and we'd like permission from the board to use your special assessment permission to do the assessment on the road.
Any questions from the board members?
We have. They're just asking to use our.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is a special assessment district that the township itself created. And so under state law, they're required to create their own special assessment commission to assess benefits, but they didn't do that. And at this point in the game, because the project is done, they just want permission to use our county special assessment commission, so they don't have to create their own of themselves.
Okay. Karen, then that's a matter of just doing a joint powers agreement?
Yes. And just, you know, it just would be just for this project, so.
Yeah, pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the Missouri Ridge Township to use the county's special assessment commission.
I knew you were gonna say it.
Okay.
Whole second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Cory,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, Pam, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sam Miller with County Planning. On our agenda today, we have FP-0239-20. This is the Re-Subdivision. So we're just asking to authorize the chairman to sign the plat.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. This is what we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay, what are the wishes of the board?
This is that one we went through before.
Yeah, and I can quickly update, just
Yeah.
after that went before the board for the zone change. The landowners have submitted the road maintenance agreement. Yep, so it's ready for recordation at this point.
Great news.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve and authorize the chairman to sign.
Do you have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Cory,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, all right, where's the controversy and mayhem? Here it comes. Darcy, just kidding. Yeah.
Good morning. I sent you a copy of the non-competition motion that I would ask you guys to make today. It is part of the process of going through a new industry exemption, which we have one in the works for AIC Energy Corp. If a applicant is a competing business in the county, they need to publish twice in the newspaper a notice to their competitors. However, there are no competitors, so we just need the motion to be read today and have it listened.
Okay, and then, again, I think I'm requesting that I'm gonna abstain if the board would allow me to do that. But again, Ken, do we need a motion every time I want to abstain?
You probably wouldn't need a motion from the board if we would have talked beforehand, and we would have agreed. You would have just said, you talked to me, you're abstaining. But because we didn't have a conversation, you probably need a motion from the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, separate motion ahead of this motion to allow me to abstain if we could do that.
I'm sorry. Before you do a motion to abstain, you really need to disclose why you're not gonna, why you don't think, why you have a conflict in this, really.
I have a potential financial gain by having them there and having them in business. And so, there isn't a direct tie at this point, but there could be. And so,
But that's just it, Steve. Unless it's a direct substantial interest, there is no conflict really. So without really knowing what your possible interest is, I can't give you an answer on it really, so.
well, there is a future potential. There is no tie directly at this point. I just want to be above board. I don't want there to be any question about my involvement with them, and so.
I understand that, Steve, but unless you actually have a direct conflict of interest, you have to vote on it, really.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of the other commissioners already came to me about a potential interest in something, and I determined that there was no conflict because there wasn't a direct and substantial conflict. So,
Perfect.
unless it's
Okay.
direct.
Again, I'm just trying to be above board.
No, I realize that, but.
Starting to feel like I'm getting berated.
No, I'm just saying that you just because it might feel like a conflict does not necessarily mean anything, really. And just because it might not look like it doesn't mean that there's a conflict, really. So.
All right, well, thanks for clearing it up. I guess I don't need to abstain.
We'll just wait until this and when the time comes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, there's, I'm sorry for the distraction.
Do you guys have a copy of that?
Yeah.
You want to give these copies?
Yes, I will.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Williams County Board of Commissioners approves the finding that AIC Energy Corp / SAF Fuels X is a non-competing business. It is not required to publish a notice of hearing for the new or expanding business tax incentive pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 4057-1.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any additional discussion?
So
Cool, go ahead.
I guess I'm just kind of curious what what this pertains to as far as a new or expanding business tax.
Yep. So there is a program in North Dakota Century Code that any new or expanding industry can apply for a property tax exemption from between up to 5 years for anything and up to 10 years if it is manufacturing or primary sector business. And so we had a hearing with the committee to review the exemption, what they were asking for, what their project was, and we will be bringing forward the recommendations and more discussion on that next meeting because we didn't have enough time for notice of a public hearing. But, this is just one of the little steps that there's multiple steps. I have to send a letter to the state. This exemption could be up to 100% on the structures for the 10 years, or it could be a payment in lieu that's staggered over the period. And it doesn't come into effect until the project is completed. So it wouldn't, even if it does get granted this next week or next meeting, it would not be applied until they were actually done building the actual structure.
So the reason it's non-compensated, like there's no other business.
There's no other business that is like this.
All right, thank you.
It's a biofuel refinery, and they're looking to use soybean oil as a feedstock initially, and then eventually switching to canola. And so it's a good ag-related project. Soybean to start with, and then eventually, I think canola is what they're hoping. So, yeah.
All of that information.
Excuse me, Darcy, all of that information is going to come out in the public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. All right, what are the wishes of the board? Oh, you made that, sorry, that was additional
Yep.
discussion. I'm caught in the middle here. All right. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Motion passed.
Well, I have to
Thank you, Darcy. Okay, Beth, you're up.
There it is.
What I have, first of all, is the City of Tioga, project SRCPAC 053-076. This is from Signal Road from Main Street to Elm Street. And this was a, project that the commissioners did to support the City of Tioga. The state has done the bids, and it looks like the low bid is Hanson's Excavating from Des Lacs, North Dakota. But I haven't gotten any word from the City of Tioga if they're gonna have the money to pay for this or not. But this has to be sent in by March 10th, I believe. So I don't know if you guys want to go ahead and approve this, contingent on approval from the City of Tioga, or how you want to handle this.
Okay.
So in other words, Tioga City would be paying the $35,000? Okay.
Yes.
So Beth, what you're saying is we could approve this contingent on the city of Tioga approving it?
Yes.
I guess I would make the motion to approve it contingent on the City of Tioga's approval.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion?
The county share, $145,343, is that in our budget somewhere?
No, this is all on the City of Tioga.
Well, it says that, $345,343.10, according to the agreement with Williams County. The county share of the project is estimated to be $145,343.
All the county did was be the support the project, because the cities can't have this on their own anymore. So they came to the city came to the county, asked the county if they would support the project so they could have the project, but they'll pay for it all. So it's no liability or no money against the county.
Okay, and just for, then for clarification, we want to add that Tioga, the City of Tioga would be the source of the $145,343.10. Would that be the?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, that's what that.
Okay, yeah, that's what you intended.
Yeah.
I know what he meant.
Yeah.
So the $35,000 has nothing to do with it, that's just if they want to go with the higher bid. That was the confusion.
If they do the option 2 part.
Right.
Yeah.
So really, if they do option 1, that has nothing to do with it. Gotcha.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
and David.
Yes. Motion passes. Don't get your next one.
The next one I have is Cody Itzel. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I'm not sure if he's in the audience today. There he is. And they are here requesting a TUP permit, which will be later on. But they're requesting right now is to store some trailers, office trailers, at the site. And then they're going to go ahead and use them later on. They don't want to have to haul them down later.
Go ahead and provide the clarification.
Okay, and I apologize that we even have to be here because it was a, big misunderstanding.
Sorry, if you just state your name for the record, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm actually Jason from Brothers.
Jason what?
Hicks, Hicks. Cody called to get us on the agenda, but he had prior commitments and couldn't come. But, so like I said, I guess some background on it, just to get you guys where we're at is, we're doing the Highway 1804 reconstruction project east of town. We did the job last February. We were awarded the contract in March, and part of the contract is we have to provide office trailers for the staff. So, you know, we found a landowner, found the site, and the site happened to have camp trailer hookups and stuff on it. So we came to the commission virtually on April 7th of last year. And through that conversation became evidence that the landowner at one time had a permit for like the camping sites and stuff. And our take out of that meeting was the camp trailer thing was not going to happen because it was a conditional use permit and stuff. But Joe and Cody came from that thinking because it was a state project and nobody lives or stays in the trailers, that we just didn't need to do anything to have the office trailers there. Now, over the course of the summer, that landowner sold his property to Bob Pinden, and he went to get a conditional use permit this winter, here just recently, and his conditional use permit was denied because we were out of compliance and didn't have a temporary use permit. So where we're at is we've been told we need to, before we can even apply to get a temporary use permit, we have to get the trailers off of there. So first and foremost, our first objective is to get Bob so he can get his permit. And like I said, we never even looked at the minutes after the last meeting until this, and the minutes have a different interpretation than what, you know, Joe and Cody misunderstood at last year's meeting. And that's, they said, we apologize for that. There was never an intent to try to save $200 on that project and not get a permit. You know, and even after that, the way some of the stuff is written, it's a little bit unclear on, which is why we came to you guys on, you know, public works projects, you know, versus like us trying to hold a rodeo or something. So that's kind of where our misunderstanding was. But, and then Cody, so he owns the cabins that are on the site there, and a bunch of our guys stayed there this winter. So we approached him thinking we could get him off of Bob's, and he was probably already permitted, so we could put him there. And it would just make everything, get everybody in compliance, make everybody happy. He contacted the board, it must be the planning and zoning board, and he was not permitted for that type of setup or those type of trailers, which is how he got involved. But so I guess the first and foremost thing is, you know, option one, and I'm coming here to try to discuss more options or see what your guys' opinions are on if there are any other avenues outside of this. And I mean, we'll gladly take them over to Cody's and temporary storm and apply for a permit to get Bob in compliance. And that's what we're on the agenda for. One thing that's hard about these things like this public works project is we never even dug into it enough after the meeting because we didn't think we need to do it. Had we done that, the bid in February, contract in March, probably the first time we could have got on the agenda actually would have been about the April 7th meeting after we got a contract. With the turnaround in order to get a temporary use permit, that probably would have been in June, by the time we would have got one. Well, we're required by the DOT to have functional on-site office trailers before we start work. So there's between the two entities, there's a gap there that's hard to, this timing gap. So I guess the first question would be, just to make sure we're 100% clear, is that we do need to have one in that situation. And I'm assuming that we do, but I just thought I would ask again, because we misunderstood it last time.
Question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. First, Mr. Hicks, you plan on using those trailers this summer again?
Yes.
So what's wrong with where they're at?
Well, we were told that we have to remove them so that the landowner can, before we can get a permit, and before they will approve the landowner's conditional use permit.
So do you have Mr. Hendon's permission or agreement to keep them there this summer?
Yes.
So what you're saying is that you have to move them, get the authorization, and then move them back?
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. It makes no sense at all to me.
I mean, it'd be one thing if we were, you know.
And I'm certainly not picking on you.
No.
I'm just saying.
Well, no,
It's
this is just where we're between, and sometimes that's why I wanted to just come here.
Right.
Because sometimes between emails and phone conversations, stuff gets out, and
This would be a very poor time of year to start moving stuff around just so you can move it back.
Yeah, well, Pam, can you offer some clarification on this?
Sure. So just to kind of back up a little bit, so any temporary office trailers do require a temporary use permit. The planning or the development services director does have discretion on approving temporary use permits, but Cameron in this case felt more comfortable bringing this to the Board of County Commissioners. This was brought before the board back in March of last year, and the board had directed that they get a conditional use permit for the storage of those temporary office trailers. The applicant didn't move forward with that process, and so now they're in violation having those temporary office trailers on Mr. Binden's property. So fast forward, last month, Mr. Binden had applied for a conditional use permit for a second dwelling on the property. Staff went out to the property and realized, oh, there's these temporary office trailers out there that don't have a conditional use permit. So the Planning and Zoning Commission tabled Mr. Binden's request for the second dwelling until the trailers could be removed and they could come into compliance. Because we can't further develop a property if they're in compliance or not in compliance with the code. So that's kind of where we're at. We met with Chris Forsberg. He's the other property owner. So I think Taylor, yeah. So Mr. Forsberg has a public zoning district property for a retreat center. So there's hookups up over there. I guess they've been in communication with Bronco Brothers to place them. So basically this all is before you today because in order for Mr. Binden to come into compliance, they have to get those trailers off, and they were going to place them temporarily on Mr. Forsberg's property and not use them, just store them until they can apply for the temporary use permit to use them this summer.
And like I said, it was a misunderstanding on our part, and that's where it got confusing the first time we came here, was because there were kind of two things being talked about at once. One, a conditional use permit, like she referred to, which we did just drop that because we never moved. We were just going to let some of our foremen and superintendents put their campers there because they're already hookups, and that's what brought that, and that's where the miscommunication came, is we did decide to just drop the conditional use permit, but we left the meeting under the impression that we didn't have to have a temporary use permit. And like I said, we do apologize for that. It wasn't intentional, and we didn't, there's nothing here trying to save a couple $100 for a temporary use permit or anything like that. I have looked more into it, and I don't know if, and I know they did review it, but maybe in light of more information, I mean, one, if we could temporarily store them where they're at, call it. We had to unhook them already because the windstorm actually, even though they're set up by William Scotsman, the windstorm actually blew them off of their stands, and they're currently just sitting there right now, not on their stand. So that would be one option. And
Cameron, if you want to comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was just listening upstairs, and I apologize. I wasn't, this time you think you don't need to be at a meeting, sure enough. And I just wanted to address only the one point as far as we asked that the office trailers be removed before they apply. The only reason why we made that decision and continue to is because we were guided by previous court cases the county was involved in and for legal counsel that a property should be in compliance before they apply, move forward with any process to the zoning application or whatnot. But this board can certainly decide whether that's agreeable or not, but that's why we are asking all applicants to do that and have been for quite some time, because of previous court cases counties were involved in where judges made decisions based on us allowing people to move forward when they weren't in compliance. So
That's fair.
just to clarify that.
Chairman, can this temporary use permit that they received go back retroactive back to last year? So would it kind of, in a way, make them in compliance or not?
The board could certainly decide if that's something they'd like to do. I mean, I don't know if I'd be the appropriate person to make that decision.
Is there anything specific they need to do to that site or trailers in order to apply? I mean, if the way that the trailers are sitting in there now, if they had the permit, had been fine, correct? That makes sense?
So we do have a list of criteria that we review for temporary use permits, and since we don't have a site plan, we don't really know what's going on out there. We only just visually notice these trailers. So I think we would kind of have to do our due diligence on, are they out of setback? Is this can we at least contact the fire inspector possibly to make sure that these are separated the proper distance, just so if they are going to be out there, we want to make sure that they're being safe. But we didn't get that chance to do that because they didn't apply for the temporary use permit. So if we were going to have them come into compliance, we would just need to know that they're operating safely.
Good. That seems pretty easy to accommodate.
yeah, I mean, if we, then, just like I said, I apologize, and I'm glad that you guys are giving us an opportunity to do what we need to do to make this happen so we can go finish building our highway. And this is just reading in the last couple days here, if we submitted a site plan and everything, would it be eligible, and however you want to retroactive it, if we have to pay 2 years? I mean, that part's irrelevant to us. To do what's it called, administrative, administrative variance, so it doesn't take, 8 or 10 weeks.
Right.
Because if it takes that long, then I'm gonna have to go to we're gonna end up at the DOT's office and trying to get variances out of there, and, which isn't your guys' problem, but.
Well, good question, Sam. If we gave you a contingency in a motion to say to be authorized, as Commissioner Montgomery suggested, dating back to the original date, after having you have a opportunity to review the site plan and see that they're operating safely, and then give Cameron the ability to sign off on it?
Yes, I think that could be done, especially since there is language in our ordinance that says that temporary use permits can be approved through Cameron, and it doesn't have to follow a public hearing process, so I think that would be fine.
You're doing a bang-up job out there, by the way. I don't know anybody complaining about the work you guys are doing.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I've said that many times too, Mr. Hicks, and please, relay on behalf of the commission, I guess I want to speak for everybody, that I have never in my life seen a project move so efficiently and so fast as the project that you guys did. I traveled that road probably at least 3 to 4 times every week during the summer going out to the lake, and I was just unbelievable, the job that you guys did. So kudos and hats off to you.
No, it's, greatly appreciated. I'll pass it on to the guys, and, yeah, we're kind of proud of it. And we're just a small, local North Dakota contractor, and pulling out stuff like that, but us with everybody's help, and it would be appreciated to do this, and maybe I can get your contact, because fortunately, even if the way we had them set up wasn't exactly how you wanted the setbacks or whatever, they're blowing off the stand, so we have to pull them, we have to have them pulled out and reset anyway, so.
Seems like a good opportunity
Yeah.
to get it all right.
Right, and I think that it's probably all good now, and we left plenty of space and stuff, but if it's not, it'd be a simple.
Just out of curiosity, can I ask, how many, yards of dirt you guys moved on that project last summer?
About 1.9 million last year, and we got about 400,000 to go.
Yeah, it was
One shovel at a time.
Wow. Yeah,
Sam, you have some direction?
Yes, so just kind of running through the process. So Planning and Zoning Commission did hear Mr. Vinden's conditional use permit for the second dwelling, and they tabled it, and would not hear it again until the property came into compliance. And at that time, we thought the only option really was to move the property, or move the trailers off. So if a temporary use permit is approved, then Mr. Vinden can go back before the Planning and Zoning Commission, but only after temporary use permit approval has been granted by Cameron.
okay. That, I just wanted to make sure on that, because that's still the first thing we have to make sure of, is that we get him in compliance, but.
How long will it take for this temporary permit? Because, well, on Thursday, planning and zoning is meeting again, and seeing how Mr. Binden's table, we could actually hear his, application on Thursday. If this would be, I mean, how long would this temporary one take?
So the timeline really depends on the applicant. If they could provide us with all the information that we need prior to Planning and Zoning Commission, we could possibly rehear Mr. Vinden.
I can have that to you by, if not tonight, by noon tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll get the guys working on it. And would that be just the straight temporary use permit, or the, yeah, the flat temporary use permit with the TAP site plan and coordinates and everything?
Yep, and duration of event, or so, yeah, so we'll need to know when those trailers are going to be removed off.
Okay, and retroactive date, the start date of it?
Yeah,
That's up to you guys.
Can we just go back to June 1 of last year? When you said you guys started?
Mike,
Well, we actually, no, that's when, if we would have known we had to get one, that's as early as we could have got the trailers. We actually started the project in about the middle to end of April. So the trailers were there by the middle of April last year.
June 1.
And just for clarification, so it's on record, these are just for job trailers, no
Correct.
people
Yeah.
living in them.
Yep, correct. We said primarily all state staff.
Is there an ending date to this, Mr. Hicks, that you're thinking?
I believe the completion date is September 21st.
So October 1.
We should make that.
So if we put a November 1 or whatever ending date on it,
Yeah,
just to be safe?
yeah, probably November 1, in case the engineer wants to stay on site to clear up paperwork for a couple weeks.
and then just so we are clear, these trailers are primarily used by NDDOT staff?
Yep, they're part of the bid documents, and the actually part of the contract. So one of them is called the field office, and that's where the, project engineer and his staff work. The other one is an ag lab, and that's where the project engineer's quality control people work. In other words, they're material testing guys. And then the third trailer is incidental to the contract, but we're required to provide a separate trailer. And all these trailers are spec'd out. They have to have X amount of square feet, so many offices in them, and whatever. We have to have the third trailer to hold the weekly planning and reporting meetings. So, but the third trailer, we do use some ourselves.
Okay.
You know, when we're not in the meetings, our superintendent keeps some of the stuff in there. But yeah, they're primarily for DOT staff.
Okay. Well, what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the temporary use permit for the construction trailers, retroactive to June 1 of 2020, through November 30th of 2021, just so it gives you time to get them off there.
Okay, we have a motion. Pam, do you need a clarification?
Yes, please. I was under the impression that Cameron was gonna be the one to approve the temporary use
Contingent upon Cameron
permit,
approving it, yeah.
because we have
Is
to
that
approve
okay?
the project.
Well, then I guess we don't have to deal with it then, do we?
Oh, okay, we don't need a motion at all, yeah, because administratively, you can do it. Hold on, right on.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking your time to hear me out today, and your help is much appreciated.
Need a motion for us to give Cameron that.
He already has it. He already
Yeah,
has
he
it.
got it, administratively.
Administratively, we can already do it.
So he did bring up another issue though, because this temporary permit would have been tough for you to get by June 1st of last year because of our timeline though. I mean, I think that needs to be addressed somehow.
And maybe, you know, going forward, if we did this again, you guys have there's a box in that temporary use permit deal called,
Because I mean, I want to make sure that it, like if in the future, if there's another highway project that needs these trailers.
yep, and it's called an administrative variance, and I don't know how often that gets applied for, if that's actually a very used thing, but, you know, because I didn't even know it existed until yesterday when I was researching everything on this. You know, some of it is timing. There were a couple projects before, you know, the two phases in between. And those projects, I look back, and those projects did in September the year before, you know, so they would have had 6 or 7 months rather than, thank God, yes, we would have been, either the project would have been delayed a month to 6 weeks, or we would have had to figure something else out.
So with temporary use permits, Cameron does have the ability to approve them and doesn't have to go through the public hearing process. However, in this case, he had said that he would feel more comfortable taking the temporary use permit to the Board of County Commission. He has the ability to take it to you all for your decision, and that's kind of, then at that point, it follows the conditional use permit process, which is the 2-month process. So not every temporary use permit has to go through the 2-month public hearing process, just the ones that, because this had complaints and violations on it before, he felt more comfortable bringing it to you all.
Right, and then for limit liability, or potential for liability, right?
Correct, and through the public hearing process, adjacent landowners get notified of this as well. And for something, in this case, that's gonna be longer than like a 2-week event, it's like a 6-month event, so then the property, adjacent landowners get a chance to comment.
Okay. Are we all satisfied? Will you get on that?
I just one, so like in the field, let's say that they were applying for this project next year and they hadn't started yet, Cameron would have the ability to make sure they had that temporary permit. Okay, that's all I want. Thanks.
No, and it's understandable why we had to come to the board. I mean, we just flat misunderstood the first time, and, we get it, and like I said, it's much appreciated, you're giving us a chance to make it right.
It just to clarify a little further, as Sam has already mentioned, most these are done administratively. Certainly not, at any fault of the Brown Brothers, but there were past violations and issues on this property and neighbor complaints. Again, had nothing to do with them, but it was the previous owner. And I was not comfortable making that decision administratively if we had an issue, so that's why we recommend very
Hard to believe. Thank you.
Good move, Cameron, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, that.
Thank you very much. Okay, now,
I just have two other little baby things.
Yep.
If you look under communications, you'll see that we received a letter from the Court Facilities Improvement Advisory Committee, and we did not get our Court Facilities Grant Award. They told us to apply again in September. Reason we didn't get it is Burley County decided on February 8th that they were going to accept the grant that they were offered. So you'll have to apply for whatever you get again in September. And then I just put a copy of that letter that Lindsay was told to write in support of the weather modification project.
I want to have some clarification.
I didn't know that we had gotten this notice, but Richard and I did, at the request of district court and with the approval of this board, put in the request to have a couple of, a remodeling thing, a door put in, and some chairs for district court. So just clarification, that was this letter that Beth just talked to you about. I'll certainly get a copy from her, and Richard and I will work through that in September, whatever that is.
Perfect, thank you. Anything else from you, Beth?
No, thank you.
Dennis, you're up. Good? All right. Parks, the signage, additional funding request.
$30.
Yeah, we're short $528.59 on our approval.
So this is the,
Signage,
yeah, and it's because the funds are coming from the Visitor Promotion Fund and ultimately the county commission controls that spending. The park board had authorized up to $30,000, but by the time everything was said and done, we're a little bit over. Because we increased the size of those message boards too, and then by the time we figured out shipping costs for these giant items, we're a little bit over. So coming to you first, because really the funds come from the
So Lindsay, you're not getting paid tomorrow?
correct, yeah. This was my oversight, so I'm stocking for my business.
okay, what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the additional, funding of $528.59 to come from the visitors promotion funds to cover the difference in the cost.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, Karen.
Thank you. All right, so I just want to give you an update on the sale of the tax park closure properties. We've closed on all of them except one. One of them will be closing on later on this afternoon, so just let you know. I did mention to you before that we had 3 properties that we were going to be offering to the city because they were special assessments, but they were supposed to get back to staff by February 6th, somewhere around there, and they never did. And so we're going to go ahead and advertise those 3 properties in the process of sale. So, yeah.
So the city never came in on the ones that have the lift station and all that stuff?
No, they didn't.
What happened is,
Somebody bites?
I just got a call, I just got a text on Friday. I sent it to you.
Okay.
I got a text from David, whoever he is, with Public Works, and the way it was is they were gonna get with Hercules, who was gonna get with the city commission to purchase those 3 lots because they have the lift station and a pond and whatever else on them. And then the day after the sale, that David, can't remember his
Juma.
name. Who?
Juma.
Yeah. He comes and writes me a email and says, what happened to the properties? I said, we pulled them because you guys asked us to pull them, but we haven't heard a word because Hercules is supposed to be working with the city commissioners. And he goes, so you didn't sell them? I said, why would we? They're no good to us. I said, because you guys have all your stuff on them. So he said that he's going to contact Hercules and find out what's going on. So that,
We'll just add this to the agenda for the, I would recommend we don't do anything, and I would recommend we discuss this at liaison, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd say that, so,
Okay.
good idea.
What would happen if we advertise them for sale? If we advertise them for sale, somebody buys them, then what?
It would be a crappy purchase.
I'm thinking if they were, I don't know, the value would go up real quick.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, no, that's, you're right, we would end up costing somebody some money, taxpayers, likely.
Okay,
Yeah,
then we'll just, I'll let you guys deal with it,
Yeah.
Okay, also just wanted to give you, make a couple of, motions regarding the sale of other tax foreclosure properties. At the last time when you guys accepted some bids, I gave you the wrong number on one of the bids, and so I'm gonna ask you to make a motion, and then you just need it. So I need a motion to amend the bid accepted from John and Teresa Scully for the tax foreclosure property located at Lot 5, Block 2, Flat and Subdivision, from $25,000 to $25,824.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote. Did you get the motion? No? No?
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, and also because of some of the closures took place while Steve was not in town, I had Vice Chairman Corey Hansen sign off on some of the sales documents and the quitclaim deeds and the affidavit. So I need a motion to ratify the signatures of Vice Chairman Corey Hansen on the documents for the sale of tax foreclosure property.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any additional discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. So on the next agenda item, it deals with the forfeiture fund and the forfeiture board. There's two different things. So first, we're going to deal with an application from the Northwest Narcotics Task Force, and then we'll deal with the policy change. As you remember, a couple of years ago, state legislature changed law so that they required political subdivisions like the county to create an asset forfeiture fund and an asset forfeiture board to look at applications. What goes into the fund is money and property that is seized during drug busts and other criminal activities, and then a court usually eventually forfeits the property. That means it goes to really the county at this point, really. And so Northwest Narcotics Task Force a couple of weeks ago applied for a grant a disbursement of $18,970 out of the forfeiture fund. The county asset forfeiture board, which is made up of the sheriff, the state's attorney, and finance director, met last week, considered the application and approved the application. So now, because it's an amount over $2,500, it comes to you for approval. So you should have the application. There's a flyer in there. If you have questions about it, the sheriff is here to answer any questions really about the application. So.
Sheriff, how many folks are you planning to train with this? Curious.
Yeah, I think she's sheriff, so. Karen got up when you said sheriff.
I think it's gonna be good,
Morning, yeah, they're gonna bring the actual class into the Walker City area. I think it's cheaper for them to host it there. I believe we have 14 spots that would be available to us between our local county law enforcement and city law enforcement.
Fantastic.
Just for informational purposes, Bismarck is also bringing in, I believe, the basic course for this. And we're gonna be able to send some people down there that they've reserved for us. We're gonna do the same thing for Bismarck, bringing it into Walker City as well.
Perfect. Yeah, so working together, saving money.
Trying to.
Yeah.
You said it's gonna be the sheriffs and then the Williston PD officers? I mean, do you go like, Ray or Tioga or any,
It would be available to them as well if they would like to attend, yes.
Looks like a great use of the funds.
Really good use.
I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
No kidding. Perfect.
Okay. Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Motion passes. Thanks, Sheriff.
All right, the other thing on the civil asset forfeiture policy is we adopted a policy where, like I mentioned, you had appointed the sheriff, state's attorney, and the finance director. Well, at the asset forfeiture board meeting last week, there was a city representative, Steve Armstrong, and then there was also Ryan Shapley from the Northwest Narcotics Force, and there was discussion about whether or not to increase the asset forfeiture board to include a city PD and a Northwest Task Force person on the board, and our county asset forfeiture board agreed to that 3-0, that they wanted to add 2 more representatives to that board because of the resources and the time that both the city PD puts into drug bust and criminal activity occurs in the city of Williston, and sometimes they leave money, and also because of the amount of time and resources the task force puts into really mostly drug busts around here. And so they thought it was only fair to have 2, 1 representative from each of their agencies on the board too. So I'm just here to recommend that you increase the board of the asset forfeiture board to 5 members to include a city PD rep, and, well, actually, I think the policy is there, a chief of police or or his designee, and then the local director for the Northwest Narcotics Task Force or a BCI rep.
Or PCI designee.
Yeah, is that what it says? Yeah, that would be it then, yeah. So I'm just looking for a motion to increase the board to 5 and add those 2 on there. And maybe while you're talking about that, because that would be factored into the policy that we have, I also added another part in the policy where it allows the forfeiture board to use the money in the forfeiture fund for administrative expenses. For example, like I have a copy of the contract they signed off on with Jim Ryan to take minutes. And so we would be able to take those money out of the fund too. So I added something there allowing them to use it for administrative expenses like taking minutes, copies, and things like that. So if you want to just approve the proposed amended policy, I think that would take care of everything, really.
Yeah. Everybody's quickly reading the whole thing. Should be done any second.
Okay, that's fine. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer questions.
Not to ignore you, Karen, but Sheriff, this is something, you guys have already approved this, right?
Yeah, and yeah, the board approved it last week.
I would make a motion to approve the addition of 2 positions on the Williams County Asset Forfeiture Board.
How about just approve the policy?
Yep.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any additional discussion? And just for clarification, the motion was to approve the amended policy. Hearing no additional discussion, Beth, roll call vote.
Gary,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Karen. Looks like it's Helen, turn.
Morning.
Thank you.
Morning.
Quiet.
There's no new position or board positions to approve. So I hand this out to you as a reference. We do continue to recruit some positions, and we have some positions that we're holding open and not filling. I may prompt you all to talk about how the county is going to move forward in regard to masks in our buildings. The city's order to wear masks throughout the city has expired, and your directive has been, well, the city has a directive in place, so we're gonna follow that. It affects both employees and visitors to our building, and so I leave that up to you to make a decision.
Do you have a recommendation, Helen? Not to put you on the spot, but
But we're gonna put down a spot.
the spot has been put on appointment. You don't have to have one if you don't want to.
I mean, on a personal level, I will tell you, I think it's easier to carry on than to go back to normal, which I would like to do as well. And then if we see numbers go back up, reimpose the rule. Only because it's harder to get rules back in place once we take them away. But numbers are certainly low. Rate of infection within our employees is very low. I don't know that we've had a positive employee in the last 2 weeks.
Well, to go back to the first time we talked about it, they're required. We changed, they were strongly recommended, and then it was required. So I would say we could go back to recommended.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, if you don't want,
Yeah, I think from a consistency standpoint, the city still requires in their buildings, and to avoid some confusion, I mean, I strongly recommend or whatever, whatever the other board thinks, but I think just so we're somewhat consistent between buildings at least.
It still pertains to when they cannot social distance, correct?
Yeah, certainly people aren't wearing masks in their own office or in their cubicle. Right. A motor grader operator is not wearing a mask in his motor grader. Right. But in implementing masks as a tool, at least within employee groups for sure, there's then less of a concern. If you gotta sit next to some people in order to get through a meeting, if folks are wearing a mask, then it is, I think it has become somewhat of a replacement for that physical distancing.
So it's easier to implement if it's very clear and directed by this board, obviously. If it's wishy-washy, it's going to be.
Right, I think the difficulty that we talked about in the past is that for department heads to impose this rule within their department, but things being done differently in departments around the building, put that as pressure on department heads and create some confusion when you have a multi-department meeting and how are we all going to agree to do this, who's in charge.
Okay. I guess, Mr. Chairman, I feel that we still probably go with the highly recommend, because Helen, correct me if I'm wrong, we're hearing reports that more people that are getting vaccinated, the less time quarantine is implemented by the CDC,
2 weeks.
which would help us.
Correct. 2 weeks after a second shot, folks are no longer required to quarantine if they're exposed to someone who is positive. Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is as more time goes on, the chances of the mask mandate hopefully, or requirement, whatever, will eventually, go away. We just don't know when.
I mean, you would hope so. More people that are vaccinated, less likely that it'll spread and we all get to return to normal. Right now, just a vaccination update as it relates to our staff. Law enforcement, which would include just that starting really this week with vaccinations, employees in congregate living facilities, which includes the jail, are on the list now. So regardless of age, because of course there's a lot of age 75 and then age 65 with conditions, without conditions. But at this point now, we've moved down in the tiers. Our corrections officers and youth assessment center workers are eligible for their first shots this week if they arrive and they have enough to do them. Law enforcement were eligible a little earlier, meaning patrol deputies. And then really after that, we don't have a lot of the specialty groups that come up in the next tiers. So then our folks are eligible based on age or medical conditions. But I think I sent out, I mean, I regularly notify people that are eligible as the health unit and I are coordinating. I think I sent out notice to 75 people or something last week to remind them that they're eligible.
Could we make a motion that would support, requiring, employees to wear masks when they're unable to socially distance, that gives the public the option? Strongly recommend to the public that requires employees, I mean, if I'm understanding, or if I'm thinking this through correctly, it's just easier if we are the bad guys with regards to staff.
It's certainly easier across the board if the commission makes a directive.
Steve, the only thing, we don't want to be confusing between city and county buildings. I mean, we're just down the street, people are in and out of both of them at times, and I know they said they're gonna require them in city buildings. And before we kind of said, we're gonna follow the city's lead on this, so that'd be my opinion, just require it, and then doesn't have to, and then it's on us. It's not on every person, the staff member says they're in the building to wear.
Anybody else have any thoughts, or would you like to turn that into a motion?
I'm just throwing it out for talk.
Yeah.
Anybody? Everybody.
That would, I mean, and to put back on my comment, it wouldn't be fair necessarily to require the staff and then not require the rest of the people coming in. I don't know. Lots of food for thought. It's always a tricky subject. Maybe shouldn't be, but it is.
So are we gonna do the first mask mandate we had where it was strongly recommended? Because there's still no teeth behind it anyway. I mean, I don't have one under, are you gonna fine me?
No, I don't think that was never.
I mean, up until that point, what are you gonna do about it anyway? So it's, if you want to, go ahead. If you don't, well, what are you gonna do about it if you don't?
Because the idea was never to get law enforcement involved, and more make a platform for people to stand on, but it also gives us, it's primarily gonna be directed at staff and people who like to follow the rules. I think Jeremy Lundin made a great point that most people follow the rules. And so, anyway, that's the idea behind it. I think from my perspective.
I'm socially
I would make a motion, we continue with the way it is as far as masks are required inside county buildings when social distancing is not attainable.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
And we're,
I would prefer you said.
And what about visitors?
it's very simple, it's said in county buildings,
Visitors and employees.
everybody.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second for the sake of discussion. My train of thought, must be a stroke I just had.
My only thought on it, Steve, is then it makes, it puts it back on us. We've made the decision then, and then it's not a discussion, it's this is the rule, and you're right, there's no teeth. We've said that from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't want people to go to jail, we don't want somebody to have a platform to stand on, but most of the people just are gonna follow the rules, and that's what we're calling on.
The only other thought that I have is that we just put it as a regular agenda item as we progress. You can review it every couple weeks when we're meeting, and if it's just continuing the way it is, where we have zero interaction with our staff, gives us an opportunity to back out of it, and, you know, there is some concern with the rapid spreading variants that's around. I don't know if it's made it into North Dakota or not, but, you know, if we could just avoid it by hanging on for an extra couple weeks, seems like a pretty low risk. But any additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just don't like the required. I'm more open to the highly recommended option.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
Well, in order to move this along, I would amend my motion to highly recommend, so we can get off this and move on.
Okay, I am good with the amended motion as it's personally seconded. Any additional discussion?
And you just say we're gonna keep it on the agenda?
Yeah, let's keep it on the agenda.
Absolutely.
It's fun when we can remove it from the agenda, because that'll be pretty clear indication that things are good.
Well, I don't,
It's certainly looking good. Okay, Jeff, roll call vote.
Corey,
yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Just keep what you can, huh? Okay. That brings us to adjournment. Thank you.